Commentary. Hey, over here. Yo, check it out, bro. I'm in a boat. Woo! Get a job, loser! Get off my boat! Woo! Ow! Whoa! Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! You never get me to wear your stupid mask! Hey! Get out of the way! Hey! Up yours, buddy! Don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button, ring that bell for notifications, drop a comment down below, share it with your friends, and give a honk honk for freedom, baby! Welcome aboard the RSS Commentary. In today's top stories from the Daily Mail, U.S. Air Forces in Europe plan to host Drag Queen Story Hour for children of military families with your tax dollars. Oops. And the moment a passenger jet films a near miss with a ballistic missile fired from a Chinese Communist Party submarine, and China's security deal with 10 Pacific nations, including Fiji, is scrapped over fears of new Cold War. Wait. Hold on. Sorry, my mic is like peaking. Sorry about that. I just unplugged the thing and it's like peaking. I'm so sorry about that. Messed up my intro. Sorry about that. And from Newsweek, most in China call their nation a democracy. Most in the US say it isn't. You can vote for who you want to. In China, you could just only vote for the CCP. And from the New York Post, Nancy Pelosi's husband was drink driving and he hit somebody in a DUI crash. From the Gateway Pundit, Virginia parents protest policy changes that expand discipline for students who misgender or deadname other students. And from Breitbart, World Economic Forum says, go vegan, eat seaweed, algae, and cacti to save the planet. And from Breitbart, Kamala Harris joins the call for assault weapons ban. From NPR, schools around the U.S. are finally beginning to increase security after the Uvalde shooting due to the negligent, ultra-lib people who are Democrats who are running the public schools who refuse to do anything to protect them. They'd rather ban guns and then stop prosecuting people for gun crimes. And from Breitbart, Axios report midterm outlook is bleak for U.S. House Democrats. what do I do next? Okay, so let's move into the, what is it? Shoot. Is it going to show up? All right, sorry about that. Just figuring this stuff out. The show has been down due to censorship, and while it was down, I've been working nearly nonstop to bring you a much more professional news show that I'm able to do more regularly. So this is my first time doing it. As you can see, I probably don't have everything right. Is that right? That's messed up, but hey, I can only do what I can do, right? I can't do anymore. So what am I doing? I gotta get the this thing to show up. All right. Sorry. This is a new. I haven't done this in months. Here in our next story from the Daily Mail, U.S. Air Forces in Europe plan to host Drag Queen Story Hour for children of military families using your tax dollars. Okay. So what am I going to do? Back. Right. And what do I do? Okay. Sorry. Having a little bit of problems with this. Ramstein Air Base in Germany was due to hold the 30-minute event on June 2nd. A Facebook post revealed the session would include drag queen Stacey Teed. Senator Mark Rubio, Republican from Florida, condemned the event and wrote to Frank Kendall. Let's see what he wrote. Here's the Facebook post. 27 people responded to the event. We should lock all of them up. Publicly shame them for the horrible parents that they are. So do we have anything about the letter that he wrote? The letter read, quote, I urge you to immediately cancel this politically devised event and take appropriate disciplinary action against all involved in allowing this gross abuse of taxpayer funding to place children in a sexualized environment. As I hope you can agree, decisions over children and their bodies should be left to the moms and dads serving our nation, not mediated through publicly funded propaganda on U.S. Air Force bases. The last thing parents serving their nation overseas should be worried about, particularly in a theater with heightened geopolitical tensions, is whether their children are being exposed to sexually charged content simply because they visited their local library. Exactly. And the left is really getting hammered hard by the groomer comments. They can't take those. They're really working. So they're arguing that, the right is suppressing free speech by not having sexual materials available at the library that are promoting gay butt sex and masturbation and showing you pictures of how to do these things. That's when you drop your kids off at school, you're expecting them to learn science, technology, engineering, math, art, entrepreneurship, design. You know, you're not expecting them to come back and be like, well, I heard about this LGBTQ identity and I think I might be trans. Now I want to start puberty blockers. And like, if you only have one child, you know, this can be a really bad thing because your child can be your last descendant. Like, I had a child with a woman that I met at a Burning Man party who was running around in a bra with like really big boobs, and I didn't know her very well, and turned bad because she turned into a child neglector. And so her mom ended up kidnapping my son, and she had him at her house. She's got legal custody because her daughter neglected my son. I was in college. I didn't have any money. And I yelled at her. And so she had her kid being trans without the father's permission. And she was like, this woman was definitely crazy. She was like a feminist. Now, if you didn't know, this woman was completely batshit crazy and a child neglector, you would think that this woman was like, I was the bad guy. But this woman was manipulative and neglective, and she was a loser, didn't have any friends, and so the kids were her thing. Like, that was like her entire life. And then when I yelled at her in front of the kids, you know, it made her like try to get rid of me. And then she got the courts involved, and then the way she projected it to the public, it would make me sound like the bad guy. And then she's like this like hippie feminist woman who's got a transgender child, so you can't discriminate against her because like she's got the kid it's like she wanted her child to be dressing like a girl, and he was one liking dressing like a girl, and he was not, you know, a bad person. He was the wonderful child. But they had multiple children. For me, my son is my only descendant, because after that, after I had a kid, you know, none of the women wanted to hook up with me because I didn't have enough money, and I didn't want to, I was a beta male provider. So, you know, if my child was trans, this would be like killing off my family line. In the US, the birth rate after COVID is 1.64 births per woman. And a lot of people are like cheering on that the white people are turning into a minority, which is super messed up because the liberals are the ones with the lowest birth rate. And so it's like they're cheering on that like their own people are dying off, saying, yeah, the white supremacists are dying off. And then they're all like giving up having kids because they think global warming is going to like be the end of the world. And then the rest of the world isn't stopping having kids. So it just means they just like rapidly turn into a minority. And I mean, if they are going to sterilize themselves, nobody can argue that maybe they shouldn't be reproducing if they're sterilizing themselves. But you know, this isn't like a Christian thing to do. We would preach that you should have a family, a large Christian family, and that you should bring them to churches, and you should teach them good things and have them do their homework. But a lot of people, you know, they're like, they'd rather have like 2 kids, right? Because they're like, all right, well, at least I'm like at the replacement rate. But then like one of them might like start doing drugs and then commit suicide, or like die from COVID, or they might become obese. And it's like, you know, you kind of got to gamble. So it's kind of better to just have like more kids, like 4 kids, and then maybe one of them dies, but then you still got 3 kids, so your like family is growing. You know, that's kind of the way the humans work, because like 60% of kids used to die before age 6, and now people are living longer, so they're having less kids, and then we're gaying out, and we're getting all fat. Everybody's having butt sex, and nobody's having babies. I don't know. You got to send them love, you know. I'm tired of talking about this issue, so we're going to move on to the next story, because the more you talk about the trans issue, I think the less you want to support them. I'm tired of the angry trans activists attacking us all the time. That's BS. They should not be attacking us all the time. I'm tired of these insane white feminists who are like living high on the hog. They got good jobs. They are in one of the wealthiest countries, so they're the top of the pyramid, and they take a dump on everybody else because they say, oh, there's like systemic racism, and there's like systemic homophobia and transphobia and all these other bad things. Like there's like a white supremacist, neo-Nazi, homophobe jumping out around every corner to check you to see whether or not you're gay, so that they could put you in their pickup truck and take you out to the woods, you know? It's like none of this stuff is happening, and they're just kind of just making up all this stuff. And like the LGBTQ thing is like a radicalization thing where these people are, the more they talk about it, the more they hate the other party, and the more they fight about it. So in my personal opinion, I think it's a toxic issue that if we could just move beyond it, it's going to help us out, because the more you talk about it, the more people are going to attack each other and hate each other. So, yeah, I don't know. It's hard not to talk about this stuff because it's in the news all the time. The Air Force is doing this. So I feel like it's kind of like you need to do something, because they can't be using our tax dollars to radicalize our children to be gay so that they don't have kids and then your family line dies off. That's not what we're paying taxes for. We're paying you taxes to teach our kids math, science, technology, English, history. No, we could actually pass on the government history classes. I think that we as a people can find our own history books and determine which ones we want our family to read. Because if you read the history books that they're going to teach you in the public school, they're going to teach you what the government wants you to think. The government narrative is often a militarized narrative. And the militarized narrative is often utilized to get your kid to go to war, which I'm not 100% against. A lot of our country's finest individuals have been through wars, and it's something that has to happen. And I feel like the hippies in Vietnam stabbed us in the back. Like, we had won Vietnam militarily, and then the hippies stabbed us in the back because they were pushing this communist stuff, and the KGB was pushing propaganda in the US through groups like the Weather Underground and the Black Panthers. They were pushing a lot of disinformation, and they utilized the hippies to stab us in the back. And I think that that was whack BS. Even though the war sucked and we should not have been there, Lyndon B. Johnson started the war on drugs, and he went to Vietnam illegally. They did that Gulf of Tonkin false flag attack where they blew up that ship, and like they forced desegregated. And then what happened after the forced desegregation? The white people moved in. So the neighborhoods that used to have representation in the United States Congress now have a bunch of white people voting there who are diluting their vote. So the forced desegregation was all a part of a plan that they were utilizing in order to achieve dominance once they got power from the civil rights movement. Now they then took that and they caused a lot of harm to you. They used it as a weapon in order to indoctrinate your children, to take them out of your culture, to take them out of your family's control, and to put them in their brainwashing centers where they mixed up all the kids together, and then you got an explosion of drug abuse because the CIA was bringing all kinds of crack into the hood through Freeway Rick Ross and some of the other, I can't remember the guy who was in LA. And you had a lot of nefarious actions. So it's like anytime you give the government any sort of power, you can guarantee that there's some really slimy snake politician that's going to take that power and they're going to abuse that power. If they can get you to be on a side and that side is against their opponents, they're going to do this because when they do this, it allows them to win and they're going to abuse their power. I think I got to do this. All right, that's what I got to do. They will abuse their power. No questions asked. They will take an inch and they'll take, you give them an inch and they'll take 100 yards and they'll score a touchdown and they'll do it over and over and over again. And fool me once, shame on me. Fool me, or shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. You keep getting clubbed over the head with the right hand. And then you look over there and you're like, then the left hand comes and then steal your wallet. And then you look over, somebody's clubbing you right on the left. And then somebody over here comes and steals your wallet. And that's because they were working both sides. They weren't actually the right. They weren't actually the left. They were just working both sides. But here, let's move on to this next article. Sorry. There we are. Sorry, Remo wasn't responding there. Here, let me fix my green screen real quick to make it bigger. Sorry about that. Oops. All right, now it should look normal. Sorry about that. I'm actually using, I have two studios and the cameras are different. Dang it, didn't work. Oh, the cameras are different distances apart. I think I can stand up here. So the difference in the camera, difference in the distance from the camera. Shoot. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. The Air Mouse can be a little bit of a challenge on the 4K monitor. It wasn't too bad on the other monitor, but here we're gonna watch In this next article from the Daily Mail, the moment a passenger jet pilot films a near miss with a ballistic missile fired from a Chinese Communist Party submarine. All right. A little bit more practice, I'll get it. The footage is said to be from a phone that shows what appears to be a CCP missile test. The cacti, or Cathay, plane reportedly had to swerve to avoid the missile. It is believed to be a JL-3 ballistic missile launched from a Type 094 nuclear submarine as the plane passed over the South China Sea. This is very interesting. So what do I gotta do? Sorry about that. Still trying to figure out how this, is that working? Yeah. Fake news. No, that was that was the real news. I'm sorry. I pressed the wrong button. So what do I do? Yeah, that was they're definitely being pretty aggressive over there in the South China Sea. It's actually pretty shocking. Oh, that's not the right button. That's why. I kept sorry. I was messing up because I pressed the wrong button on the thing and it's not mapped to anything. Oops. I would not doubt it if the CCP invaded Taiwan. I personally think that China Joe Biden, the streaking White House groper, the one who likes to run around the White House naked and grope women. You think I'm joking? I'm not actually joking. Joe Biden actually is known for that. That's what he's most known for at the White House, is out of anything, even more than him being a complete incompetent, bumbling idiot and corrupt DC SWAT monster. He's known for groping women at the White House and walking around naked. So they're going to take advantage of this. I personally think that Joe Biden is blackmailed by the CCP through the Hunter Biden deals that were on the Hunter Biden laptop that big tech suppressed. I think that Joe Biden is trying to take down our country from the inside because everything that he has done has been completely incompetent, has been to raise gas prices. And he's part of this World Economic Forum Great Reset agenda that is allied with the Chinese Communist Party. You will own nothing and be happy. Hashtag communism, hashtag fascism. The way they do it is they weaponize the far left and the far right, and they trick you into supporting them by making a false choice where either side that you support, you are supporting the dictator, because in authoritarian countries, all roads go the same direction, exactly the way the dictator wants you to go. This is what you have to understand when you're dealing with the disinformation campaign, is that things are often the opposite. Now, I'm not saying you should be like some crazy QAnon conspiracy theorist, even though Jeffrey Epstein is 100% real and Russiagate was a hoax, and the 2,000 Mules is 100% true. You have to, not appear to be crazy, but all this stuff with Joe Biden, we got all the records to prove that China Joe Biden has been taking millions of dollars in bribes from the CCP to buy access to the White House because his crackhead son, Hunter Biden, likes to have sex with prostitutes while he smokes crack cocaine. And he takes bribe money from the CCP and that corrupt Ukraine energy firm Burisma in order to purchase access to the White House, and they shared bank accounts with each other. The reason why Russia invaded Ukraine is because of Joe Biden's incompetence. The reason why the gas prices are so high is because of Joe Biden. Joe Biden has known for a very, very, very long time that if we pulled out of Afghanistan and left the weapons behind, that the Taliban would get the weapons, it would cause more wars in the future, and it would have the effect of raising gas prices. And that is the problem, because that's exactly what they're doing. What they're trying to do is corner the market, and they want to inflate away your savings in order to make it so they have way more money. So when they inflate away your savings, what it's going to do is their competitors had a lot of money, and now all of a sudden they have very little money. And so the people who have the most money at the end holding the pots are now going to have complete control over the market. And who's got the most money out of everybody? The CCP. The CCP has the most money. So at the end, they're going to be left holding all the cards. We are not going to be able to manufacture electronics here in the United States because Joe Magoo Biden wants to open the borders because they're trying to pack the electorate to engineer the election outcomes by giving Latinos welfare and food stamps, then tricking them into thinking that Republicans are white supreme pizza extremists, so that they will vote blue no matter who. And they're using your tax dollars to do this. They're indoctrinating the children in the public school. They're teaching them to hate their parents and to hate white people and to hate heteronormative people and to blame the patriarchy for all of their problems. The reason why you're not making as much as the married parents who have kids is because the patriarchy is holding you back. And then when you actually get the job, you're like, this is booty. I don't want to work this much. I don't need the money. And then they don't even work. That's the way it goes. That's what happens with most of the women. If they start getting a lot of money, then they know that they can get a husband, and then they can just dip out of their career and have a family. And then they typically choose to do that because that would be the sane and rational thing to do that I would highly recommend that you do, especially because you don't need the money, especially if you have way too much money. You can just invest it into a business. There's no real reason for you to be working for the man. That would be kind of weird, right? But with the way our system is set up, it's set up to collapse. You got the Chinese Communist Party is selecting what movies are being able to be seen in China. So you got Hollywood bowing down, sucking Xi Jinping's dong, and taking it up the rear for those Hollywood CCP China dollars. And they're compromised, so what ended up happening over there was then the CIA then came into Hollywood and started pushing all this woke stuff. So you wonder where the woke stuff happens. All you got to do is look at watch the movie Wolf Warrior, the most recent one. The first one kind of sucked. I think the second one sucked. I think it's Wolf Warrior 3. I only saw clips, but when you see the clips, you'll see exactly what the CCP is doing in their propaganda. They're trying to paint the United States as white supreme pizza, all right, extremists, as if like we're the Nazis. And they're using it for propaganda, and then they're using Hollywood for propaganda purposes. So the CIA basically took over, and they're countering the ability of the CCP to pick which movies are selected to be played in China with this woke stuff, and it sucks, but it's making money, so people click on it. And really it's a self-destruct button, because we got the feminists are giving up having a kid so they can take the man's job, rise up the man ladder. They can get that man money so they can be head of household. And then by the time they get up there, they're like 35, they're overweight, they got some health problems, they're a bit crabby office bitch. Nobody would even want to rub their pussy even with a broomstick. And they're wondering why they ain't got no kids. It's like, yo, woman, you need to be having babies when you're like in your 20s, you know, maybe 19, 18. Not 17, you know? But like this whole story of, oh, you got to put off having kids so you can go in college and you can get that man money. You can have that man job so you can smash that glass ceiling, baby. And, you know, then they end up turning out to be my age. Then they can't have no babies no more. They got some frozen eggs. And then they're like hitting me up like, hey, you want to watch Netflix and chill? I'm like, yo, bitch. How much your sister? How old is she? Later, peace. Kick rocks. Psh. So we're going to topple because we got a scenario where the white population is cucking out. Their population is dropping off the face of a planet. And we're collapsing, and so the Democrats need to maintain power. And so what did they do? They opened up the border so they could pack the electorate with Latinos, give them welfare and food stamps, tell them there's the white supreme pizza extremists are trying to take away their welfare and food stamps and kick them out of the country. And so this means that the first generation Americans vote blue no matter who. And then the statistics are showing that the second generation and on immigrants are voting for Republicans because they're more entrepreneurial. You know, the classic stereotype is that the immigrant comes to America and they showed up with nothing and they worked their way up. They became an entrepreneur and then they made it. Next thing you know, they on top, right? And so what happens when they do that? They turn into a Republican, right? So this is the problem that the Democrats got going on that is so pathetic that just makes you just want to like shake your head and be like, yo, bro, y'all need to go. Because we're toppling over because the immigrants that they're bringing in, they're getting them hooked on socialism. So now they're trying to pack in as many illegal immigrants into the big city as they can fit, so that they can get as many people on food stamps and welfare in per square mile. And in order to make up for the conversion rate of the second generation Americans and beyond voting for Republicans. So this is why you need to have open borders, because the white man had slaves. The white man killed the Native Americans and they took their land. They got the wrong skin color. They're not supposed to be here. The nomadic Indians somehow had property rights or something that we were like infringing upon. Apparently we were like trespassing or something when we legally immigrated here because it was our own legal system that caused us to immigrate over here. But then it gets turned on us whenever the Democrats then start getting buddy-buddy with China, taking millions of dollars from the CCP, smoking all kinds of crack cocaine, banging hookers. And then next thing you know, we got China Joe Biden, the streaking White House groper, the one who allegedly molested his daughter Ashley, the one who gropes women in the White House, walks around naked. He creeps up on little girls and he touches them and he acts all perverted. And everything that he does is just completely incompetent. But then you look into the history of Joe Biden in the Senate and you'll see he knows that if he does what he's doing, it'll cause the gas prices to go up. And that's the goal. They want the gas prices to go up because they want to sell you electric cars. They want to sell you green tech made in China. They want to get us hooked on this green tech. And then when it doesn't work, the CCP is going to invade. They're going to take Taiwan. They're going to take the South China Seas. And then they're going to bend Uncle Sam over and stick it up the rear. Next thing you know, we're going to be making electronics for 50 cents an hour, working for CCP overlords that immigrated illegally and then started buying up all the land, and next thing you know, their first generation American children are allied to the CCP. They're bringing in all this fentanyl through the cartels that's causing your kids to die, but their kids don't do it, right? So they're all about it. They love the cartel because the cartel smuggles in the voter base of the socialist Latinos that vote for communism with the black looter mob and the Antifa Nazis. So we're screwed. You might as well get a whole bunch of butt condoms because you're just about to have to take it in the rear. And you can thank China Joe Biden, his crackhead son Hunter Biden, taking the millions of dollars worth of bribes from the CCP. You can thank Nancy Pelosi, her drunk alcoholic husband who crashed the car recently. And you could thank her corrupt son, Paul Pelosi Jr., who, and then her husband's Paul, I think. Don't quote me on that, but this Paul Pelosi Jr. is the one that takes all the bribes. So Paul Pelosi Jr. is just like Hunter Biden. You didn't know about him because they got so much corruption going on over there. And a lot of it stems back from Ukraine because that was the hotbed of money laundering for a long time. Remember the Burisma Energy Board that crackhead Hunter Biden used to sit on so that they could get access to the White House? There's like a whole trail of these really sketchy dudes, and then they're like, pulled all this Russiagate hoax stuff where they said Trump was a Russian asset, when the whole time it was their people tapping Trump's wires at Trump Tower, and also too at the White House, spying on the White House. And it's like we're like powerless to stop this because the corruption in the DC swamp is so deep. They got corruption all up in the U.S. Capitol Police. They're all black looter mob over there, the U.S. Capitol Police. They've been abusing the January 6th protesters, been torturing them legally, prosecutorial abuse. They've been putting on this sham January 6th committee that is like a third impeachment of Trump, where they don't address any of the issues in 2,000 Mules. All they do is dance around. They're like, see, this one was false. This one was false. And then you look into it, and then like the area where they're talking about didn't influence the election. This is what if you don't understand where the fraud happened at, you have no idea where to look for it. This is why you have to have an open source voting machine that does not use Windows-based computers that have RAM in it that you can access, and you can, like, there's been reports in the news recently that the Dominion voting machines have been declared to be hackable, very unsafe. So Sidney Powell might have been getting some disinformation from QAnon, But there were anomaly. There was exactly 4 vote dumps that caused Biden to win, and they were in places where the mules were operating heavily, and they had the people who were paying the mules were timing it so that at the very end they could just put in money to pay the mules to go pick up more ballots. That's why it's illegal. That's why ballot harvesting is voter fraud, because ballot harvesting is a method for mules to get paid from billionaires using sophisticated artificial intelligence algorithms and insider information from social media platforms that they own. And like Zuckerberg made that $419.5 million donation quote out of the kindness of his heart because it was COVID and he wanted to help out. But he didn't want Trump to break up big tech or reform Section 230. So he had these ulterior motives in order to do this. And it was declared in Wisconsin to be a illegal bribe. So there was one state where this was declared illegal at. And then there's prosecutions going on in Yuma, Arizona in the 2000 Mules case. So with all this corruption, like, we're really weak, because what they're doing in China is that they're playing this like a harp. Like, they're going and saying, look, the U.S. isn't actually a democracy. Or let me switch to this next story that is about this issue. If I can get it to work, right? No. Well, I accidentally pressed the wrong button, but it turned out to be the right thing. Here in this next article from Newsweek, most in China call their nation a democracy. Most in the U.S. say America isn't. And I would 100% agree, because when you have billionaires who are putting in $419.5 million, and then George Soros put in another $50 million, when you're doing this, it does not have the appearance of a free and fair election. It has the appearance of a very, very, very high-priced election that nobody that I know would have any chance of being able to afford. Well, I'm going to have to take that back, because I actually do know one woman who is a billionaire from back in my days, back when I used to be the rave fun dude. But you can vote for anybody that you want to in China, just so long as they are the CCP. So this claim, like, that they're saying that it's more of a democracy is lunatic. I can understand a little bit where they're coming. Okay, so let's put yourself in the shoes of some people who live in a country where there's a bunch of really brutal, whack thugs. Okay? Now, if there's a bunch of chaos, people are going to vote for authoritarianism over complete chaos. So this is an understandable reason why somebody might vote for them. So then whenever you move into a transition into a time of peace, it's unclear whether or not the authoritarian system is going to be better than our system, because there's 2 aspects to this. So we have the best model that we have for a government, in my opinion, is the DARPA internet model. I am a software and computer engineer. I made my own network protocol. So I have a lot of respect for DARPA and the TCP, IP, and the UDP protocols. I think that they're very well engineered. Even today, there's good reasons to use them. And the reason why this is strong and the best is because it was built to withstand a nuclear bomb. And they did so by making it distributed, so that there was a lot of different nodes, and that these nodes can operate independently of each other. And if one of them goes down, you can replace the node pretty quickly with another node. And now we have the internet, so there's proof that this system works really good. And this is why people who say that capitalism is bad and communism is good, because you'll have these rich people who get a monopoly and it's not fair because they hoard all these resources and they control them, and that makes them like a bad person because they got bad intentions. Then you look into it and it doesn't really quite make sense, because what do you happen whenever the state takes over? You have a state monopoly. So whereas you had a bunch of small businesses and a monopoly that grew, and some large businesses and medium businesses, of course, now you only have one business and it's centrally operated. And so this leads me to explain the downfall of communism. Downfall of communism is that it's a centralized system. In order to share these resources equally, they have to have all this red tape, bureaucracies, and you have to get permission to do things. You can't get permits for things very easily, and when you do, they're going to come in and count the beans, make sure that you're not taking any for your own personal use, so you're not exploiting the fruits of the labor of the proletariat. And this is just not an efficient way to run a government, because you can't really you can't organize trades very well. In a communist country, in order to do a large trade, you're going to have to get the government involved. They might okay it, they might shut it down, they might utilize your business for a military operation, insert spyware, insert fentanyl to ship to the cartel. Then you have this overhead cost that they have to make up for somehow, and the CCP what they do is they utilize slave labor over there. They have a bunch of poor people out in the country, so they say China is doing so well in their economy. It's doing so well. But then you divide it by the number of people, and you can see that there's no way that they're ever going to not be poor with that many people in that density, unless they take it from us. So they tell the people out in the countryside that they're communists, so they don't have to pay them. They just basically shuffle stuff around and give them free stuff, just like fascists do. And then the Chinese Communist Party, they will take bribe money in order to let you manufacture stuff with their slave labor. So if you want to manufacture electronics in China, which I want to do, but I'm not able to do because I am a electronics engineer, and I make electronics, and I do actually need to manufacture there, but I'm not going to be able to do it because I do stuff like this, where I'll stick like little Pooh Bears in here to troll the CCP, and then I'll talk about Tiananmen Square. I'll talk about how Taiwan is a free and independent country. And so this stuff like this, there's no way that I could ever do business in China. And this is in fact why I am doing this show, because I know that I'm in the business that I have. I don't have the ability to get the price where I need to get it to sell my product to be able to compete in the industry. So now I'm doing a new show. And then I got my A startup business. It's like a virtual online co-working space and business productivity software and online educational class platform. So, and job training. So, what was I talking about? Something about a startup. Oh no, the CCP. So oh yeah, the communists, the Chinese slaves. They got the concentration camp in Xinjiang, which is it's not a physical genocide. It is a genocide where they are trying to reduce their birth rates through putting them in this concentration camp to re-educate them. And they're utilizing them for slave labor. So next time you put on some jeans made in China, you should just Remember that the touch of Xinjiang cotton, it feels like genocide. You know, they're not killing them, but they are reducing their birth rate. They are doing cultural Marxism on their culture. So it's like a soft genocide, not a hard genocide. But for sure, they're eradicating their culture. In China, they are xenophobic as it gets. So like these libtards, they will straight up say that China is this benevolent giant. Oh no, they're good because they're communists, and the communists are for the people. Even though they got a dictator who, and like the CCP lives high off the hog, they got millions and billions stashed away in private bank accounts and houses outside of the country. And so if they left the CCP, they would have a place to go with a mansion and boat tons of money. And the rest of the people in China are going to be broke. So it's not actually communism. That is far right. When you got concentration camps, when you got the touch and feel of Xinjiang cotton feels like genocide. Then you got the xenophobia where they're kicking all the Westerners out. Like you can't own property there. You're like a second-class citizen there. You're just there to serve the CCP. That's it. All you're there to do is some technical job that they need a white man for. Other than that, they're straight up ultra ethno-nationalists over there. Like they're as Nazi as you get in China. You might as well call them Nazi China because that's what it is. China is Nazi. China is asshole. But people will succumb to this propaganda. This particular line of propaganda is not new. This is an old form of propaganda where they utilized heavily in World War II. The reason why the women voted in Adolf Hitler. Hitler won by a landslide, 86% of the votes. The fascists were the first wave feminists who legalized voting for women. And what did women do right when they got power? They installed a strong man because he was a big tough dude. And so then they ended up with this genocidal maniac, and they thought it was a freedom movement. You heard that right. The Nazis thought it was a freedom movement, that if they elected Adolf Hitler, that they would get freedom because they were poor and they wanted to be equal with the United States and with Russia. This is the thing that people don't understand. In World War II, Nazis wanted to be, and fascists wanted to be equal with the United States and with Russia. That was what they were trying to do. To them, equality meant you were living a first world lifestyle. The only way that they could do that is through being brutal murderers. They thought people would rapidly evolve if you did eugenics and you had wars and we fought, and it would be like the Olympics, like a bloody Olympics. And it didn't, they thought they would make a master race out of this, but that didn't work because they just ended up murdering all their genetic improvements. It didn't, it doesn't, when you murder, when you're trying to make genetic mutations, and then you go and you murder so that many people, you like kill off any sort of progress that you just made, right? It's gone, dude, because you have to have combinations of people. So if you really want to actually evolve a master race, what you actually have to do is make as many people as possible. And killing them is kind of antithetical to that task, right? You have to be cooperative with other countries, because once you start being military, then other people will be hostile with you. You won't get good trades. All the costs are going to go up through the roof, like what's going on right now in Ukraine with the energy prices going through the roof because Joe Biden wanted to jack up the energy prices so you would convert over to green energy. So that definitely is not a democracy. A lot of the stuff that we get, well, we're a republic. The problem with our republic is that the liberals don't vote. The liberals don't pay attention to news and politics. They just want everybody to like them. They want to pretend that like you can create a coalition with everybody, that we're all just going to sit around the campfire, hold hands, sing Kumbaya. Nobody's going to circle jerk me while I'm not looking and try to steal my wallet. I've been to enough rainbow gatherings and raves, so I know to watch myself when we're in the prayer circle. Shit, think I ain't had the reach around done on me a couple times at a rainbow gathering? Shit. But you got to understand, most people have no interest in running the government. They don't really want to pay attention to this stuff. They just want to be with their family. I don't blame them for that. But the problem is when you don't pay attention, then stuff happens, and then all of a sudden you need to pay attention, but you don't know what's going on. And then you're prey to the demagogues who will exploit your prejudices, exploit your psychology in order to get a predictive response out of you through emotions. They'll get you angry. They'll get you sad. They'll get you happy. They'll do them in different orders by beating the drum of propaganda at a regular rhythm so that you get used to this, so you think that stuff is more of a big deal than it is, or that stuff that is really a big deal is not a big deal. That's the method of propaganda that these people exercise in. Once you understand a little bit more about propaganda, then you'll understand exactly what the Democrats are doing. And I do have a book that I will be releasing maybe next year or something called the Freedom Cookbook. And I will be teaching you all about how to do this propaganda. It's open source. It's on GitHub. I don't have a lot right now, but I've been researching, and it looks like there's a lot of really bad information coming out of the liberal democracies. The liberal democracies lie the most out of all of them. They're big fat liar, 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 pants on fire, Pinocchio. They are a woke Pinocchio or a wokey Pinocchio. In order to get people to vote for you in a liberal democracy, you are going to have to lie to people to build up a coalition, because your opponent's arguments are probably going to be better than yours a lot of times. But you have to win anyways. So they do a lot of dirty tricks and they say a lot of lies. And if you're not familiar with the rhetoric that they put out, then, or the propaganda that they put out and the rhetoric, what it means, then you're going to be falling prey, because they know that when you don't know certain things and you know certain things and you feel upset about certain things, that you can have a predictable response in certain situations, and they can do a lot of really bad stuff to you. For instance, the current line of propaganda is they're trying to associate white people with white supremacy, because they're utilizing the same tactics that Adolf Hitler used against the Jews. They're utilizing the anti-Semitism propaganda techniques invented by the communists that the Nazis then used, where they blamed all that is bad with capitalism on Jews. They said that they were like these white trash hicks that had capitalist businesses, that they were exploiting the fruit of the labor of the proletariat, and that they were a threat. They were multiplying faster, and they're going to take over. They're going to take control, so you have to stop them because they're bad people. They have bad intentions. They have this religion that's not your religion, that is going to put them supreme up at the top. So it's an emergency, and you have to go with their war effort. And it's the same thing, only they switched the Jews with the white supremacists, because the white supremacists are such a small population that they can target them, and there's just nobody respond, because everybody's like, yeah, sure, go get them, guys. Like, yeah, get the Nazis. Let's get the Nazis. Everybody's watching all these movies and video games where they're killing Nazis all the time. So like they think that like the Nazis were like way worse than the communists, and that a lot of them think the communists were the good guys, and they have no idea the communists mass murdered over 100 million people in the past 150 years. So this is an example of the demagoguery, that if you are not paying attention and you do not know the history of communism, fascism, the CIA, Iran-Contras, the CIA bringing the crack into the ghetto to get the black people hooked on crack after they did the forced desegregation so they could move all the white people in to outnumber them in voting so that they could take their U.S. House of Representative seats. Like the entire civil rights movement was just a scam from Democrat politicians that once they got power, they took you into Vietnam. They did a war on drugs, and then they took that power that you gave them, and then they clubbed you over the head with it, with the right hand. And then when you were looking over there, like, what's that? They're like, oh, pick in your pocket. Then you look over there, you're like, what's that? And then all of a sudden, wham! Right hand comes out of the left. And then it's just back and forth, just left hand, right hand. You know, you lead with the carrot and you push with the stick. That's what's going on. It's the carrot and the stick. And if you don't understand this stuff, you're going to be completely clueless. And so I can understand a little bit that what they're saying in this article, where maybe there's a little bit of credence to that. But, you know, it's not a democracy when the only people that you can vote for are the CCP. I'm going to call that one. Nope. Wrong button. I'm sorry. I'm going to call that one fake news, baby. What do we got, baby? What do we got? What do we got here?
Oh my God! That is the major biggest.
Woo! Got some fake news right here, baby. Ow! Fake news. Fake news. Okay, that wasn't too bad on that transition. I'm getting the hang of it. I just got to get this new air mouse figured out. It's like really big, so it's hard to use for me. I'm used to a small air mouse. Huh? What was I doing? I completely forgot what I was doing. Here in this next article from the Gateway Pundit, Virginia parents protest policy changes that expand discipline for students who, quote, misgender and, quote, or, quote, dead name and, quote, other students. You can't be a friend of them transes because they got it's too emotional. They can't take it. They can't take them bullyings now. Last week, parents of students from Luther Jackson Middle School in Fairfax, Virginia, protested a proposed policy change that would expand penalties for 4th through 6th graders for misgendering and dead naming people. I mean, come on, man. Under the proposed changes, addressing a boy as he, even though he calls herself a girl, or calling a transgender or gender expansive? You're expanding the gender. People calling by their names other than their new chosen name would require disciplinary action. This would not pass the Supreme Court in any way, shape, or form. Not at all. Not at all. You have a right to free speech. When you go to school and you're on public property, your right to free speech does not end when you go onto school property. When you go onto school property, the teachers are substituting for the parents to do the critical activity that if the parents do not do, they would not be acting in the children's best interest. All right? You following me on that one? So what this would do is it would basically say, once you go to this school, you don't have any right to free speech. We're compelling you to be at the school, forcing you, abridging your rights, and the state is doing it because it's in the child's best interest, which is agreed. There's a lot of POS parents out there that would start molesting the children, and if we didn't have them at the public school, we wouldn't know about it, wouldn't be able to stop it, wouldn't be able to curtail it before it caused more injury. But they've essentially banned prayer in schools. They said, well, nobody else has a right to tolerate your speech, so you're not allowed to pray in school because you would offend some other people or something like that. But the problem with this is you're only actually going to be able to pull that off if the kids and the parents comply with that. Because if the parents are like, no, my kids are going to pray in school, when you get to school, I don't care what the F the teacher is saying. You're going to do a prayer right in front of her, give her the middle finger, and you could say, you can kiss my Bible. But we've let them get too much power. They've been mandated to get your kids, and they've been running off with them, teaching them to be LGBTQ, teaching them how to have gay butt sex, how to masturbate in school, teaching them all about the different genders. And I've seen this stuff. My son goes to middle school in Eugene here, and I watched on online school the teacher try to indoctrinate my kid into anti-white racism and radical LGBTQ politics. This woman was a feminist. She was kind of cute, not really that good looking. You know, maybe like a 7 or something, maybe a 6. You know, I'd still do her and put a paper bag over her head, gag her, and probably good to go. But it was it was Black History Month. And so they were going off nonstop about how white people oppressed black people, teaching them. Like, I went to school in Charlottesville, Virginia, where Thomas Jefferson is from, where there is Monticello. And we used to go on a field trip to Monticello. And sorry, it's giving me chills to talk about it. We saw the places where he kept the slaves. We saw his books. We saw his Bibles. We saw where the food was grown. We saw where the babies were, the illegitimate children were birthed. We were taught that Thomas Jefferson was a wise and noble man. He was a man of God. He was a good man. Everyone loved him. He did a lot of good things for the world. Even though he owned slaves, that was just a thing of the time. People used to die in the millions from famine, and people became slaves because they didn't have food. They would take homeless people, put them to work on the farm. They would take prisoners and they would put them to work on the farm. It's just something that they did. It wasn't racism. People think like all the slaves in the United States were black, but it isn't true. Half the slaves were white. The slaves weren't all black until around the Civil War time, when the transatlantic slave trade started to pick up. But most of those slaves, like 96% of those slaves, went to what do they call it? Like Haiti, West Indies. Yeah, they went to the West Indies and South America. They didn't come here. People think they were here, but most of the slaves in the United States that were treated really bad were white people who were serving prison sentences. And the masters thought that they deserved it because they killed somebody or something. And, you know, a lot of it was out of necessity, because people would die from famine. They didn't have farm equipment. It was the only thing that they could do. And so the black people did the same stuff, but then these people, they start blaming us. Black History Month, they only talk about racism. They only talk about Martin Luther King, about all the black superheroes, and then they were pushing they were doing the sex education class, and they were teaching about gender ideologies, and it was like the video that they played was so cartoonish. It was like some cartoon like rainbow thing with some trans cartoon characters, or like some Powerpuff Girls with like all these different crazy genders. It was straight propaganda video. And it was like disguised as a health class, and they're utilizing your tax dollars in order to indoctrinate your children into something that can cause your family line to die off. They might turn gay and then stop having babies, and then next thing you know, you ain't got no grandkids. And then next thing you know, your family line's dying off. And this is why the white people turn it into a minority. Because the liberals are giving up having babies because of global warming, even though it's a hoax. And because women want to smash that glass ceiling. They got to get that man money. They got to take the man's job. They got to be head of household because you got to smash them stereotypes. The patriarchy is just bad. And then, what happens is the system's just not sustainable. It just implodes on itself. And this is just what happens. It's like a cancer when you let a cancer take over your public schools. This is what it is. It's the cancer. What we should be doing, I am a software and computer engineer, and I program computers all day, and I run startup companies, and I make art, and I used to make a lot of music, not so much anymore nowadays. But I'm running some nonprofit companies. I'm running the Church of Infinite Simulations. I'm running the Freedom Government. We're creating an open source government and voting machine systems. But the liberals, instead, what they're off doing is they're not paying attention to the news. They're off partying. Maybe they got a good job. They did good in college. Most of them aren't. A lot of them were selling drugs. A lot of them were partying, drinking booze all the time. Like, they're my age, but they're looking haggard. I'm looking pretty good for my age. You wouldn't even know what my age is. I'm not even going to say my age. But I'm not drinking alcohol. So the years haven't been wearing down real quick. So I'm not looking as haggard as most of these other people that I've respected that have looked so young my entire life, like the Burning Man community. And the bar scene here in Eugene, I used to play in the bars a lot, play trumpet. And the people that I know were drinking a lot of alcohol, doing a lot of drugs, Molly, cocaine, LSD, mushrooms, weed, hash, 2CB, all kinds of weird research drugs. Then people started like banging heroin and shit because they were getting this stuff from the cartels, from the CCP on the dark web. And then people started like nodding out, dying. Like, large percentage of my friends died. And then I got into this engineering thing, and then, like my friends just kind of got distanced because I turned into a Republican and they're all libs. And I am not being brainwashed in the corporate work structure. And I'm looking from the outside, from like somebody who's basically like a stay-at-home parent who runs a business at home, who doesn't have any employees, so I don't have anybody. I don't have a lot of assets you could take out. I have a lot of future assets, but I don't have money that you could wipe out. So I could run my mouth without having any sort of consequences to my pocketbook coming right away, because I owned a business. I could do whatever I want. And so these people, I look in at these people, and I think they're nuts because they radicalize themselves because they get pissed off about stuff. This is what you got to look at. I study psychology. I look at it from the terms, viewpoint of cognitive dissonance, from positive psychology, from behavioralism, from what other principle? So what they're looking for, you got rewards for behaviors. when you get these rewards, it can get you to do things. People get in arguments, and when they get in arguments, you can imagine people don't know exactly what's going on. They don't know all the facts, like they're not that bright. So you can imagine there's two people that are having an argument, and let's say they're friends, and there's a third person that comes in, and they don't know anything that's going on. So the story I like to use is Peter, Paul, and Mary. And Peter is in a fight with Paul because Peter is now a Republican, and he's talking about MAGA and building the wall. And so then Paul doesn't like this. He says that Peter is being a white supreme pizza extremist, right? And so Mary comes in, and Mary's trying to figure out like what's going on. There's this argument. Paul's calling Peter a white supreme pizza extremist. I don't know anything about what's going on. He says something about the great replacement. And then so that she's got to go off of, she doesn't know the facts, so she's got to go off of who she likes better. Who does she like better? Well, she likes Paul, because Paul is repping feminism. He's saying that like white people are bad because they enslaved Africa, and they took land from the American Indians, and they took the land from the Mexicans, and they were Nazis who committed genocide. And they did all these illegal wars, like Vietnam. They did a war on drugs. And so like their version of the history is just very simplistic. They don't know that the Democrats were the ones that were forced sterilizing people, that the eugenics in Nazi Germany was modeled after the Democrat eugenics programs that were going on all the way until I was a baby. Like, this stuff is not that old. This stuff was going on when I was a kid. They were force sterilizing multi-generational incompetent people. I mean, that's another level, bro. That's some straight Nazi stuff, bro. And then the Democrats are all suckers. You see, all they see is all this stuff about racism. And they're like, yeah, I'm not racist. I like black people, right? And I like women, and I like feminisms and womanisms. And so they just see it like, oh, the other person is just being a hater. They don't want women to have equal rights. They want to put that glass ceiling on them, stick a burqa over their head, lock them up, make it so they can't go to school, can't go to work, can't vote, can't participate in government. They raping them, beating them. And, none of it turns out to be true. All turned out to be, a bunch of like BS nonsense that just was made up because it was an easy version of history. It was easy to say to other people. And so it spread fast because it was more viral because it was easier to explain. But then it wasn't true. Like this whole trans argument, you look into the trans thing, it's like, okay, well, 60% of these people are committing suicide after they transition to trans. And you're like, okay, well, would you take a surgery for a non-essential psychological condition, what they have historically said was a mental disorder, which gets mistranslated into illness? It's not an illness, it's a disorder. Like depression is a disorder. So like if you're depressed, that would be identical to having gender dysphoria in the classification in the, what is it called? The Statistical Manual of Mental Diagnostic Disorders or something. I don't remember. I can never remember. I got to look it up every single time. I can't remember. But they tried to normalize it. It's like because there's this big industry behind it, and these doctors are making all this money. They're doing this research. So to them, it's just like a research project where your kids are like cash dollar signs. They're just looking at them like, I wonder how many surgeries we can get out of this kid. Damn. I could probably get, top surgery. I could get a bottom surgery. We could get about 10 years of counseling. we're gonna have complications on like quarter of them. Man, non-stop. This is like a ching, ching, ching. Let me see your dick, kid. So these people are definitely right to be protesting this. I don't understand exactly why people are so up in arms about this, because it's just like, I mean, it's so obvious that you just shouldn't do this. You want to have grandkids. You don't want your kids to go to school and learn about all these new radical gender ideologies, and then next thing you know, you got a pocket of trans trenders popping out because all the kids are trying to mimic each other because they're having trouble socially. They're don't know where to fit in, and then they find people online that convince them that they're supposed to take these hormone blockers and change genders, and then it's just a temporary thing and we don't know anything about it. But these people are trying to pretend like they got all this research that like backs up like this thing, like you're like denying trans people essential medical treatment by not giving them hormone blockers to stop puberty. I mean, for real. You know, this camera makes me really short. I know what it feels like to be Fauci right now, bro. Seriously, man. Like, the camera moves over there, right? I'm like normal height, right? And then I go over here, bam! I'm Fauci! Sorry. Here, let me read in just a little bit more. And then I gotta go over to the next story. Let me see, did I read this? Reading on the article, according to the proposed changes from the Fairfax County School Board, the action of misgendering would create an environment of discrimination and remove a sense of safety for students in any school-related activity or event. So what if I said that my gender is sir? You will address me as sir. That's my pronouns. My pronouns are sir, sir. Right? So you only do it whenever somebody's like legit. And then anybody who isn't playing along with your games, now they are a white supreme pizza, extremist, they a bigot, they a transphobe, they a homophobe, they a fascist. Got to get rid of this guy. You got to be inclusive. You got to be diverse. You got to be equitable. So that means you got to get rid of the heteronormative white people. All these salty crackers got to go, bro. You got to, in order to include this small amount of minority that the Democrats rely on to maintain power, now you got to exclude a much larger group of white males, because, you know, that's really kind of what they're trying to do, because 3 out of 5 white males votes for Republicans, and that number is getting very large, and our birth rate is not below replacement rate. Reading on the article, the offense of misgendering or deadnaming by one of the students to the other is categorized as a level 3 offense. Do 2 more, you're going to be getting offenses up there with the pedophiles. The outlined responses to such an offense includes referral to a behavioral support group. They're going to put you in indoctrination training, all right? Referral to a community-based services and additional threat assessment as indicated by the behavior. The disciplinary actions for such offenses by a student in the school district, including removing a student from school activities for 7 to 14 days, in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension, and possible referral to law enforcement, baby! Oh, they coming after you. They throwing a book at you. Damn! You better just get your kid's dick out and get the knife, because they going, woo! This is why you need to get more involved in your public schools. I understand you don't want to talk to the people at the school. You're not happy with them. You hate the guts. It's totally cool, but you gotta be there. You gotta go in there. If you are not there, a wingnut leftist will come And then they will start convincing the kids to top their dicks and their boobs off. The school board was set to vote on a proposed change last week, but has tabled the discussion until June 16th. So this show is running late. I know that these articles are late, quite a bit late, but I've been working on my slides. All this stuff is really complicated. Even for a software engineer, it's not easy to do this in this OBS. And the hardware is bare. But, so that'll be actually tomorrow by this date. But the video says it's from May 30th, because that's how long it's taken me to get the show up. But hey, I'm here right now. One connected parent says she was afraid the school board was, quote, waiting for the stillness and quiet of a summer evening when we're not all paying attention, end quote. However, Stephanie Lundquist Arola said she and other parents would not stop paying attention regardless of the timing of such activities and discussions, or decisions, I mean. So yeah, you know, you got to proceed going forward because the left is pushing this stuff. They want your kids to vote blue no matter who. They want to indoctrinate them in school on your tax dollars to hate white people, have gay butt sex, and chop their dicks off. And, you know, if you want to do that stuff on your own, you know, no problem. But I am an only child, so don't be pushing that stuff on my kid, because if you do that, you're killing off my bloodline, okay? That is just really creepy, bro. Especially the drag queen story time thing. That's just creepy, dude. Getting through it. I just want to cover this one real quick. From Newsweek, Fox News guest suggests, quote, ballistic blankets to stop children from getting shot. I'm going to have to second this notion. I think this is brilliant. What we can do is we could provide the children with a place to nap where they have these ballistic blankets on the ground. They're like nap pads. And then if there is a shooter, they can pop out the ballistic blankets and they can protect themselves from the dude who's trying to kill them. Right? It's a great idea. It's a great idea. I think maybe you should buy a ballistic blanket for your kid and then bring it up to the school and be like, yo, check this ballistic blanket out. The kids can take a nap on it. Let's get all the parents to buy one of these ballistic blankets, or else some whacked out libtard militant leftist is going to come up and shoot up the school because they've been on too much psych medicines and our society is going out of control. Or you could just ban guns. You could just stop prosecuting people for crimes, you know, because you're like, you're trying to get rid of the prison industrial complex. So you just, you ban guns, all right? So the law-abiding citizens can't get guns to defend themselves. Then you open up the borders. So you got a cartel that's coming in here that's heavily armed military force, bringing in tons of cocaine, meth, heroin, crack, fentanyl. They're getting your kids all hooked on dope, using them to make billions of dollars with, so that they could take over the country with their new cartel network that they just smuggled in. And you gotta subsidize it. And now that all the illegal immigrants have showed up, now your tax bill goes up because we got a welfare state, we got Obamacare, and you have to pay for the health care for the children because the Democrats want to get the kids the first generation Americans, the children of the illegal immigrants, they wanted to get them to vote blue no matter who by giving their parents welfare and food stamps. And then they're going to have you give up your guns. So you're going to have a heavily armed, occupying military force that is going to be killing your children with fentanyl that they're getting from the Chinese Communist Party. They're not going to prosecute you for the gun crime, right? But they just make it so you can't buy the gun legally, right? Because it makes all kinds of sense. It makes as much sense as anything else the Democrats do, right? It was the opposite of the sane, rational policy, so they had to present a contrast. They got to make themselves different. Present that stark contrast that makes us, this is the right side. So they end up funding all this stuff that causes this mental illnesses, that causes all these mass shootings. And then they won't do anything to stop the black people killing each other in Chicago. You got people, gangbangers, getting little kids to go murder people up in Chi-Town like all the time, bro. It's like Chirac over there. And there's just nothing that we can do because we don't live there. All I know is that mayor of Chicago looks just like Beetlejuice, you know? All I know is if I go there, I'm probably going to get robbed, so I probably shouldn't go there, right? But to them, that means I'm a white supreme piece of extremist, right? Because I called them out. I didn't take their propaganda line and then go with it. I didn't be like, oh, you got to get rid of the guns now. So that means that I'm got some bad intentions or something. That's exactly what they do. They try to paint it like there's an emergency and that you have to give up your rights. And if you don't give up your rights, then you have bad intentions. You're trying to get little kids killed. This is how authoritarians take over. It's the same story in every country when the dictators take over. Same thing. It's an emergency. People are dying. The kids are going to die. There's going to be little old ladies who are dying in the streets. And then you got to give up your rights. Like the Jews before World War II, they got the Germans to give up their guns. Because they're being all religious and stuff. And then the Nazis blamed them for them losing World War II, or World War I, sorry. And then we ended up with the Holocaust, which wasn't exactly the way people made it out to seem. They made it seem like the Nazis just killed the Jews because they hated Jews. It wasn't actually true. They put the Jews in the concentration camp because they said they had lice. Then after they were in the concentration camp, they were running out of food. They invaded Russia because they needed the food from the Baltic area near Crimea and the oil in the Baltic oil fields. And so they had to make a choice of, do we let the Jews into Russia, and then they'll join the other people and then the Russians and then come fight us, or they do the final solution, and then they did that. It was a murder. But the German people didn't stand for that. But what they'll do is they'll mischaracterize it. They'll say that these people just have bad intentions. And it's not really true because they had good intentions. They were trying to make a socialist utopia. They just had all these wrong things, like the pseudoscience, like the scientific racism that was completely cruel whack. But it was demagoguery. They were using demagoguery to exploit your prejudice to get you to attack a specific group so that they could get you to overthrow the government. And so that's what you got to worry about with any of these propaganda campaigns coming from the Democrats, is they're going to pull the same tactics straight from Adolf Hitler, like what they're doing right now, trying to paint white or patriots as far-right, alt-right, white nationalists. And they're doing it because they're losing epically bad. All of their solutions suck, like this idea to ban assault weapons, and then you know, what is an assault weapon? It's like, oh, anything that's got more than 6 bullets. It's like, yeah, that's like almost all the guns. You just banned almost all the guns. You know, you give these guys an inch, they're going to take 100 yards and do a touchdown. They're going to be dunking on you, bro. They take a mile, but all they needed to do was take 100 yards so they could keep going in the game. So that's why you can't even give them an inch. What you got to do is you got to be giving these kids ballistic blankets. That's what they need. What you need to do, you need to train your kids how to shoot guns and then send your kids to school heavily armed, right? I'm joking. That's totally a joke. Don't cut that out. They were going to cut that clip out of proportion or out and edit it. Make it sound like I wasn't joking. I'm joking. But they're dishonest. So yeah, if anybody knows anybody who wants to like help me get into a company making ballistic blankets, I think maybe there's some government contracts. Maybe if you're a Democrat and you got some inside connection with some Democrat politicians, you can like, you know, help me out, you know? All right, let's move on to this. Okay, what am I supposed to do? I need to put it on. I don't have it. Hey, don't forget to hit like and subscribe down below. Ring that bell for notifications when I go live. Drop a comment down below and share it with your friends on social media to feed the algorithm. Don't forget, check us out on Rumble, on Facebook. My Twitter is banned because I got hate mobbed by Antifa when I was spitting facts about the Great Replacement. And so they were attacking me, threatening me with violence, and then I got suspended because I was calling them stupid. So Facebook is a better platform right now, but yeah. Also check out Top RSS News. That's my new news channel. You can find links down below in the description. In this next article from Breitbart News, World Economic Forum says go vegan, eat seaweed, algae, and cacti to save the planet while they eat meat. The WEF, or WEF, i.e. the fascist cabal that's trying to take over the world so that you will own nothing and be happy, has finished its annual conference in Davos, Switzerland, a country that was Nazi at one point in time, with a grim warning about the future of the planet and the threats posed by a reliance on meat proteins in everyday diet. I might have to push back on that. That's actually not true. Actually, the animals are they're just fine. We're exporting too much meat to China. We shouldn't be exporting stuff that's going to cause damage to the land here. We should be working in things that are not going to cause whatever devastation they're talking about. But I'm going to have to push back that the devastation that they're talking about isn't even a bad thing, or that it's stoppable. Because if you look at the trends of what's going on, it's rising. We're at a relatively low temperature for Earth's history. We're in the elliptical. When the sun orbits the Earth, there's like a circle, and then it elongates, and then the Earth goes farther and away and closer to the sun. And so that's the winter and the summer. And so we're going to go into a cycle where that is going to happen, and then the Earth is going to get cold, but then whenever it gets closer to the sun, it's going to get really hot. And humans evolved during a period of time when this was happening. So the idea that this would be devastating for the planet is just kind of BS, because the CO2 levels are pretty low, the temperature levels are pretty low, and when you look at what actually happened, the sea levels didn't rise because we didn't understand the physics of the glaciers, and the increased CO2 had some positive effects. So we were about to go back into the elliptical cycle. In fact, I can actually show it to you. All right. So here is the chart that I was telling you about. You can see there's it's relatively circular. Okay. So this is you know, as the sun circles the Earth circles the sun. I'm sorry, as the sun circles around the flat Earth. Yeah. It goes a little bit closer and a little bit farther away, but this will get greatly exempt. It will be a lot more later. Yeah, this was the one that I wanted to show you before. So you can see there's some circular there's some oscillations that are going on. There's an eccentric, an obliquity, or the tilt. There's the precession. And then over tens of thousands of years, these waveforms start to add up and they cause climate change. And so you could see in the upper left-hand corner, up over there, you can see that there's a circle. Can I get it closer? Right, so you can see the circle, nearly a circular orbit, that's where we're at. Nearly elliptical orbit, that is the where it goes in between really hot and really cold. That's the period of time when humans evolved, where it was a lot hotter than it is today. The equator, the oceans were like a hot tub. All of the monkeys were up in the Arctic, so we evolved in the Arctic. And the amount of CO2 that we put out actually had the benefit of stopping us from going into this highly elliptical orbit that you can see. The highly elliptical orbit would be the devastating climate change that they're talking about. And it was going to happen in 10,000 years, but now because of climate change, the Earth has more energy, so it's not tilting. So because it's not tilting, it's not going to go back into the highly elliptical orbit, and so it actually it's put off the ice age for another 100,000 years. So there's actually some benefits. What they're saying with climate change is that the temperature is changing too fast, and that this is like going to be devastating for the animals. And like, you know, the problem with that whole argument is that the animals, they kind of evolve and morph anyways. There's mass extinctions, and when that happens, the survival of the fittest ends up causing evolution. You know, what you want is you want to have as many animals as possible. If you don't have a very good understanding of how evolution works, you might think that you need to protect the animals from dying. Okay? But that's not really actually a very scientific thing. Actually, evolution happens through mutations that happen in each host. Just like with COVID, whenever we had these different strands of COVID, what happened was that the virus mutated in a bunch of different hosts. In each one of those hosts, it infected X cells. There was a Y% chance in each cell that it was going to have a mutation. Then after it infects however many billion cells, it has a mutation, right? Probably trillion cells, right? So the same goes with animals. If you want animals to evolve, what you want them to do is to reproduce very fast. And when they reproduce faster, they will have more life cycles, which will then cause more mutations, which will then give you more genetic diversity, give you a healthier ecosystem. So this is going to happen when the temperatures are hotter. When the temperatures are hotter, the animals are going to reproduce much faster because there is more food for them to eat because there's more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So the only real danger that we really actually have to worry about with this global warming thing is like maybe there's a freak chance that the Gulf current could shut down and then it can cause another ice age. But the problem with this whole argument is that the Earth was going to go into an ice age in 10,000 years. And from all of the extra energy that we put in, it caused the Earth to stay in this nearly circular orbit for another 100,000 years. So your whole argument of we're like destroying the planet here, we're going to cause an ice age here, it doesn't really actually hold any water when you examine the evidence. For evidence, what I'm talking about, that comes from the book Inconvenient Facts, and then also a little bit of stuff from Veritasium about the physics. Veritasium is a wonderful YouTube channel. I would highly recommend that you check out Veritasium. And then, you know, probably like PBS Spacetime and all those physics guys like the Fermilab. Yeah, Fermilab's what's up, dude. That's like one of the coolest places, man. I wish I could go there. If you know anybody at Fermilabs, hook me up. I want to come to Fermilabs and like check out the stuff. And I grew up around a nuclear physicist, so I saw a lot of physics experiments with lasers and stuff. I would just really like to see how much progression has progressed since when I was a kid, because that's just super cool. I've also too got some physics theories would like to run by you. I got my gradient relativity physics theory. Sorry, I'm rambling here. I think I'm done with this story. Hey, don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button. Drop a comment down below to feed the algorithm and share with your friends. Don't forget to follow us on other platforms like Rumble, Facebook, YouTube. Where am I at? I'm on Parler, Gab, not on True Social. I'm on... what's that other one? Getter. I can't put any, I mean, it's too much work to run all these social media networks. That's why I don't really care about big tech monopoly that much. I care more about Section 230 reform than I care about the big tech monopoly. But I personally am running for president in 2024 on the Build the Moat platform. We're going to declare a cartel invasion. We're going to send the military to LA because 1/3 of LA is illegal immigrants. And so we're going to send them back to Mexico. We're going to send the military to the southern border. And we're going to build a moat, build a wall to keep those filthy, stinking Mexicans out. And what else is going on? We're going to, the moat is an amusement park. So there is a moat. It's not that long, but it's more like a zoo. You got a pit full of sharks, eels, alligators, crocodiles. Then on the U.S. side, there is lions, tigers, bears, packs of wild dogs, and there's roller coasters. And we're going to have a prison there that we're going to lock up the deep state Democrats. And you'll be able to ride roller coasters and look at the deep state Democrats all locked up. Hillary Clinton. We're going to lock up Jerry Nadler. We're going to lock up James Comey. We're going to lock up Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Hunter Biden. I don't know if we're going to lock up Bill Clinton, but maybe. I mean, there was that stuff with the cocaine back in the 90s where they killed those people who walked in on their cocaine smuggling ring. So maybe we can lock them up for that. Who else are we going to lock up? Can we lock up Dick Cheney? We're going to lock up Liz Cheney because of her part of the fraud in the January 6th committee. Who else are we going to lock up? I said Hunter Biden, right? We're going to lock up all the deep state Democrats involved in the 2,000 mules. We're going to lock up the 503c nonprofits that were paying the mules. We're going to lock up all the people that were involved in the shadow campaign. And we're going to have some really cool amusement parks. The rides, we're going to have rides that are themed after the animals that are in the moat. It's going to be a hoo-nanny. We're going to have a crocodile roller coaster. We're going to have a killer whale roller coaster. We're going to have a shark roller coaster. We're going to have multiple sharks roller coasters. One of them is going to be a shark roller coaster with laser beams on the heads. We can't actually put laser beams on the shark's head. I tried to actually get this implemented, but we're not going to be able to actually attach the laser beams to the shark's heads without having some legal complications, but it's going to be awesome. That's why you should vote for Cale McCollough in 2024 so that you can build the moat and send the U.S. military to L.A. Shameless promotion. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I have no shame. I'm not sorry. Here in this next article from NPR, schools around the U.S. increase security after the UVLAD shooting. It took them this long. The only reasonable solution that anybody's come up with so far has been to get ballistic blankets for the kids. And it's caused an uproar. We covered that in an earlier story here. The Democrats, what they want to do is they want to install these Soros-backed district attorneys that don't prosecute people for crimes so they can create a criminal culture because Democrats are criminals. And they want to take away your guns. And then they don't want to prosecute you for gun crimes because the prison industrial complex is racist to black people. So you got to make it harder for law-abiding citizens to get guns, even though one of the leading causes of gun deaths is people defending themselves from criminals with guns. Most of the guns tend to be illegal. Criminals typically don't buy firearms that are licensed in their name. They buy guns that were stolen from people's houses who bought them legally, or they buy them from cartels. They file off the serial numbers. They only use the gun in one murder, and then they get rid of it. So, and they got an endless supply of new guns, bro. Endless supply. You know, they got the southern borders open, so they got the cartel took over. They're bringing in tons of fentanyl, meth, crack cocaine, heroin. And they're getting the fentanyl from the Chinese Communist Party. The Chinese Communist Party is using it as a chemical warfare agent in order to take the United States down as the world's #1 superpower. But the Democrats have low birth rate, so they got to open up the borders. Also, too, black Americans have similar low birth rate, so they need to make up for how hard it is to have a family in the big city by opening the borders and bringing in millions of illegal immigrants that are smuggled in from the cartels And they want as many people on food stamps there in the big city as possible so that they can get as many Democrat voters as possible. Because you know when you're not on food stamps, the chances of you voting for Democrats is pretty low, right? But when you are, when you're hooked on government subsidies, well, then the Democrats, they start looking like they the answer. They're like pushing for anti-racism. You're like, right, I'm not white. I don't like racists. I want to get the white people's money too. So why not, right? So they just go with it. They roll with it, right? So they push these policies where they getting people to think that the white people are racist. So these people then hate us. They're like, your people oppress my people. Now we got beef, bruh. And then they tell them that there's this white supremacist, extremist, terrorist threat, that every place you go, there's going to be a white supreme pizza extremist popping around, just going, yeah, stick them up, whites only, baby. This is Trump country, MAGA. So then they trick you. They're like, you got to give up your guns because they spent all of the money that they could have spent hiring security guards. They spent that on pension money. Down there in California, they are spending $76,000 of your hard-earned tax money per homeless person. They got this corruption network down there where they got these 503c3 and C4 nonprofits that they went to colleges. They were buddy-buddy with people who are powerful, like Democrat politicians. And then they get insider contracts. And then next thing you know, you spend $76,000 per homeless person, and there's an explosion of homeless people. And they're taking shits on the sidewalk, banging dope all over the place. They're straight up banging cartel dope in tents downtown. But then if you say anything about it now, you're a racist now. And the reason why is because there's a new group of people coming in town. They're taking over, bro. You got the cartels smuggling in millions and millions and millions of people. They're selling narcotics because they can't work. And then you got all these crazy wingnut liberals that are canceling people, using the schools to indoctrinate kids into radical LGBT politics, trying to get the kids to take hormone blockers, to delay puberty, to chop their boobs and their dick off. And then people, they locked us down, made us wear masks, made the kids wear masks all day, isolated them. Next thing you know, kids are killing themselves, and they're going to school with guns, and they're shooting the schools up. And it's not just the far right. You got this ULAD situation, which was, this one was this guy was a trans person that went and shot up the school. This was not the Buffalo shooting where the 18-year-old militant leftist or fascist went and killed the black people at that Buffalo supermarket. But they want to say that, like, if you get more and more Republican, that you're going to, like, turn into far right. You're going to turn into a fascist. But these same people, they don't know anything about fascism. Like, the fascists were, like, first-wave feminists. Fascists were pushing for voting rights for women. The fascists were not bad people at all. They weren't in support of a genocide. They were just trying to get out of poverty with the military. They thought that they could just smash their political enemies with the military, with the state, through social ownership of the state, and then they would have, it would be cruel, but then they wouldn't have poverty after they did the eugenics, just like the Democrats were doing the forced sterilization of multi-generational incompetent people. That's why the Nazis started doing their eugenics program. What about this? But they want to, these people have a very simplistic mind. They think the Nazis killed the Jews, they put people in concentration camps, so that means that they are not trying to fight for equality, that they're like just some dictators that like just want to, they're thugs and they just want to kill people. It's not the way it was. That's absolutely not. No, a fascist was a competition to communism where you could have private property, but it'd be like communism, and then they would utilize the state to smash their enemies like the communists, like Stalin was doing. And they were really fighting for equality for their people. They were trying to make it so that their people were equal on the same status with the Americans. And if they had to utilize slave labor to do that, they didn't care. That's why they were far right. But they were socialists. They were people who were trying to make the world equal. It's just that they had a totally brutal, sick, twisted, psychotic way to get there that was ruthless and cold-blooded. And they really shouldn't have gone that far. But they weren't. That was like something that more, because the communists started mass murdering people in the Holodomor in the early 1930s, and then the Nazis built concentration camps, and then the Jews ended up there because they were running out of food, and then they invaded Russia. So they had to either feed the Jews or let the Jews go out into Russia or let them starve to death, and then let their people starve to death, or the final solution. And they chose that. And that was not representative of their form of government. That was something that happened in response to communist genocide that was brutal, but really it was not anywhere near as brutal as what the communists were doing. The communists were also two anti-Semites pushing the same anti-Semitism that the Nazis were pushing. But people remember the fascists as the bad guys because they're the enemies in the video games that you kill. And the communists, they think the communists were the good guys because we fought Hitler with them. But the truth is that World War II started out with Hitler on the same side as the communists. So the fascists were allied with the communists, and then Hitler invaded Russia to get the oil fields and the food because he was running out of food, he was running out of gas. He had to, and if he wouldn't have ran out of food and gas, then Russia would have invaded and taken over. So it was something he knew that Russia was going to attack. And so it was either they fight each other and then trick the United States to get into war, or they invade Africa and they take Africa, and then the Africans could come and then possibly take over there, and that would lead to the worst consequence that they could have, which is negrification, where the white people turn black. African black. Not just like Latino, but like black. And that was the primary motivation behind what they did. The rest was, like they were on meth and stuff at the end of that war. But they were liberals. They were illiberal liberals. An illiberal liberal is a fascist or a communist. A communist is not a liberal. A communist is in an authoritarian country where they'll lock you up in a gulag, right? So that's definitely not liberal. That's an illiberal liberal. And so that's the same thing with BLM, with the Democrats. They're illiberal liberals. So once they get you to give them your guns because of the school shootings that they're negligent in stopping, then they're going to then use the power that they got to abuse their power to get more power. And they're going to come after the Trump supporters. It's just going to get worse. You just can't give up your guns at all. Especially when there's a cartel invasion. The southern border is taken over by cartels. There's no way in hell that the people are going to stand for you abridging the Second Amendment during this period of time. I mean, that's just crazy. That's crazy. I'm going too long on this story. Hey, don't forget to smash that like button and the subscribe button. Ring the bell for notifications when I'm live. It'll be happening more often. I think I got the kinks worked out. I'm not sure whether or not they're going to suspend me on the YouTubes because I've never known any reason that they've ever suspended me. Like, I don't know what it was that I did. They said I did something, but I don't know. If I look at it, they said it was misinformation. my information has been true almost every time, historically looking back. And then the information they're trying to say is like misinformation turns out to be the bad stuff that was unscientific, because it was, that's what happens anytime you have a centralized system. Like if you have communism and fascism, you got a centralized system. Or if you have a distributed system. Hold on. Distributed systems don't have this problem. When you centralize the power into a small area, then you're going to be highly susceptible to a single point of failure. A single point of failure can be corrupt politicians who are taking over, such as the demonic rats. So this is why, we need to have as many gun owners as possible, not just all of the guns in one group's hands, so that people can't defend themselves when the cartel shows up, shooting, taking over, because Biden turned America into a narco country. Boy, that's scary. That's pretty freaky, huh? Here in this next article from Breitbart, Kamala the Hussy Harris joins calls for assault weapons ban. You might know Kamala Harris from her affair with Willie Brown, the Democrat kingmaker, former mayor of San Francisco, the one that got Kamala the jobs. Kamala slept her way up to the top with a married man. So she is indeed a hoe, a hussy, and a homewrecker. She added her voice, her cackling voice on Saturday to call for bans on, quote, assault weapons, end quote, following 2 deadly mass shootings that have rocked the country. I mean, the same amount of people die every weekend in Chicago, but you'll never hear this corrupt lying bitch say anything about that city that's run by Beetlejuice, Chirac, the place where the kids are murdering people in the streets all the time, the gangbangers. It's like a war zone over there. You'll never hear her say anything about all the gun crimes that are committed with illegal guns, because there's like 2 or 3 guns for every person in America? So you can't just ban the guns and get rid of the guns. We have the Second Amendment. You're going to have to take people's guns. So they want to ban any gun that has more than 6 bullets in the clip is going to be an assault weapon. You're going to have a special permit for that. This is just nonsense, because the entire point of the Second Amendment is they just overthrew a tyrannical government. They needed military weapons. The British were trying to prevent them from having weapons, and they wanted us to have military weapons. In fact, at that point in time, the United States government was contracting military ships from private individuals. So when they said, oh, but you couldn't own a cannon during the Civil War, that's complete lies. You could own a warship with a bunch of cannons on it. And that was the point. The point was to have a militia that the government could pay, and it's ready to go at any time. So as long as your weapons are maintained, they're in proper order, they're ready to go anytime, and they're weapons that you're highly likely to encounter in the battlefield, that weapon is covered under the Second Amendment. Now they want to, I would completely disagree with a lot of the directions the Democrats, when they were in control of Congress for hundreds of years, I would disagree with a lot of the movements, what they said. They were the progressives, the positive rights people. They were the ones, they're not just like your classical liberals that want negative rights. These are your positive, your progressives that want positive rights, the people who did the forced sterilization of the multi-generational incompetent people up until when I was a kid. These people will utilize anything that you give them to club you over the head with, because they're thugs. They're criminal thugs. Like this woman, Kamala the Hussy Harris, she's supposed to be like the border czar, right? She's supposed to be like stopping this cartel invasion on the southern border. And like, what does she do? She just doesn't even show up. All she does is just like go around and like hang out with people and cackle, and then like make herself look like a crazy bitch. So this is just a proxy. If they start with the assault weapons, 100% guaranteed your pistol is going to be coming next. You're not going to be able to protect yourself from the other people who are shooting at you with illegal guns, because they're going to have clips with 10, 20, 25 bullets in them, and then you're going to have a gun with 6. That's it. You're going to have like a revolver. You're going to be like, stick them up, boys. I got you now. I'm going to be And this is why you should never vote for Democrats, because fundamentally, everything that these people have been doing is just like BS, whack. It's absolute garbage. These people are like, the politicians are trash. They're snakes. They're selling snake oil. Everything that comes out of their mouth just about is a lie. Brainwashed, ridiculous nonsense from MSDNC and the Criminal News Network. It's like they're reciting Soros talking points like in their sleep or something. It's like Mark Zuckerberg's got their Facebook app tap, and when you go to sleep, like George Soros comes on, and he's like Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. Elect DAs that don't prosecute crimes. Ban guns. Next thing you know, you wake up and you're like, I will vote for Democrats. I will give money to the Open Society Foundation. I will vote to ban guns. I will turn a blind eye on 2,000 mules. I will vote. I will give money to Black Lives Matter. Next thing you know, you're at work, everything's fine, right? And you're like, just working, like, doo-doo-doo-doo. You go home, next, they like flash a light, and they say, I will vote for Kamala Harris for president in 2024. I will love Joe Biden. Joe Biden is the best president. Give money to Black Lives Matter. Antifa is not a group. So you got to wonder whether or not these people are actually real people. Are they actually NPCs? I personally think that we're in a supercomputer, and that these people are actually like NPCs, actually like spitting out a rehearsed script, because in the supercomputer simulation, we have photonic neural networks. And so we have a bunch of devices that have signals that they have to communicate with each other. They go at light speed. And because of this, there's a propagation delay. Because of this, we utilize low frequencies in order to do a wireless power transfer to nodes and to program the system wirelessly. And so I believe that there are these high frequency light forms in the matrix, and then there are these low frequency light forms. And light form means that you're in a photonic neural network, that the machines use light to communicate, and then they multiplex these signals using different light frequencies. So it's like you got a telephone, old school telephone system that would like multiplex all the signals on like one line. And so the low frequency light forms, they're like the NPCs that like, they're really stupid. They can't really think. And they've been banished to the low frequency spectrums because they suck. They're like do a bunch of bad stuff. They're greedy. Like they're cause problems all the time. Everybody hates them. So what do? Banish them to the low frequency spectrums. That's how you do it in a supercomputer simulation. So, what was that about? NPCs or something? Kamala Harris might be an NPC. I don't know. I've never heard of a single policy that this woman has ever put forth other than locking black people up in San Francisco when she was DA, right, for weed. Like this bitch is a total like drug Nazi, you know? Like now, this is the problem with Democrats. They always gotta atone for all the fucking whack shit that they do. It's been whack shit like for hundreds of years, nonstop. As you know, it started out, they were the slave owners, the KKK, then they opposed the women's suffrage, then they did the war on drugs. They blamed it on the Republicans because Nixon coined the term war on drugs, but it was started by Lyndon B. Johnson, who did the forced desegregation so that they could take the black population's senators, their voting power, by bringing in a bunch of white people and then splitting their kids up into different schools so their kids would be indoctrinated into the schools with the white kids, and so then they would start voting with the white people, and there would be way more white people because white people were 98% of the population back then. So then the white people would have complete control over their U.S. House of Representatives seats, and they had no clue what was going on. And then they took us to war in Vietnam. They said there was a Gulf of Tonkin incident where the U.S. bombed their own ship and blamed it on the Viet Cong, and then they brought us to war in Vietnam, and then you got a bunch of people killed. Then you got the Iran-Contras, Cold War, moving up into the first Iraq War, which was pretty much started by Joe Biden and his deep state. And then you had the second Iraq War after the Democrats demolished the World Trade Center through putting computer-controlled torches on the World Trade Center so that it would melt and collapse so they could use thermite charges to detonate the outside steel mesh that was load-bearing on the World Trade Center. They used thermite on the outside, and then they just melted the core on the inside, demolished it. Then they took us to war in Iraq so that they could oppose the war, blame it on the Republicans to retake control over the White House and Congress so they could pass Obamacare. Reason why they ended up doing this is because a lot of people were dying from the health insurance companies not covering pre-existing conditions. The World Trade Center was home to a bunch of life insurance or health insurance companies like MetLife. And so they were basically targeting the health insurance companies. They killed a bunch of people, took us to war, blamed it on the other side, just like they did in Vietnam. It's the same false flag thing that they've been doing. They've been doing this stuff all over the world. And like they're responsible for the schools because the Democrats have been controlling the school boards. The people who should have been guarding the schools were not there. What they need to do is they need to hire people who work at the school who are ex-military. If you hired some Marines to come and teach the kids some stuff, and the Marines got some weapons up there on campus, there ain't no way in hell you'd have one of these UVLAD school shootings. And that person was a leftist. He was a trans person. It's not just like the far right that's coming at you. Most of the mass shootings, over 50% of the mass shootings in the United States are committed by black people, black males. You can look at it. Let's look at it. I might not have it. Or I might not be able to find it very quickly. Here it is. I got it. I saved the day. It's cool. There's a lot of folders here. All right. So here is a picture of all the mass shooters from 2021. And now Joe Biden says the most lethal threat to America is white supremacy. But then you look at the pictures of all the mass shooters, and I don't even have to tell you what the pattern is here. You can clearly see the pattern is definitely not a bunch of white supremacists. Definitely looks like stuff that goes on in Democrat cities. Obviously, most of these people are black. So, obviously, whites, there's maybe one or two white supremacists on here. There's white supremacist gangs, but they're like crazy, weird fringe. But this gangbanger stuff is not fringe. This gangbanger stuff is way too common. I've almost been murdered in One home invasion robbery. My sister also was almost murdered in a different home invasion robbery at my house. And then I was almost murdered by a serial killing gangbanger from LA. And he was black. It's a thing. I live in Oregon. There's 2% black people here, but me and my sister have been almost murdered by 3 different black males on 3 different occasions. It's a pattern. Definitely not a bunch of white supremacists over here. Definitely a bunch of black guys. Do you see any black women? Are there any black women in this? Let's look. We're looking for black women. Nah, it's just a bunch of black males, man. That's just it, dude. So maybe if we're going to do anything to stop the mass shootings, maybe we should do something about the black males that are doing the mass shootings. Because that would be the people who are doing the mass shootings. Most of these shootings are committed with handguns. I don't know, what are you going to do? You're going to ban handguns? Like, I mean, what weapons are we going to be able to use to defend ourselves? Am I going to need to defend myself with a hunting rifle? Will I need to like walk around with a freaking hunting rifle downtown, right? So I won't get mugged? All right. Hey, don't forget to smash that like button down below and the subscribe and ring that bell to get notifications. I'll be doing more live streams here pretty soon. Also, to drop a comment down below to feed the algorithm, because you know that's how you get the word out. Do I got anything else? Here we got one more article here for you. Here in this next article from Breitbart, Axios report, midterm outlook bleak for U.S. House Democrats. House demonic rats have such a bleak outlook for the U midterms that even districts won by Biden's by up to 15 points. Oops, gotta click the full story over here, baby. Because you know I got that. Oh, come on. Damn it. Sorry, the button's not working. Shoot. Here, I can do it this way. All right. So even in districts where China Joe Biden won by up to 15 points are in danger of flipping red, according to a report from Axios, citing the Cook Political Report. Here, let me zoom in. Citing the Cook Political Report that predicts Republicans will gain a net of 20 to 30 seats in the midterms, shifting 10 races in favor of the Republicans, while only 2 in favor of the demonic rats. Axios concluded that demonic rats have bleak prospects this November, per the report. Oops. Sorry about that. Gonna get spied on by the news companies. Cook's U.S. House editor Dave Wasserman said the most competitive races will be in states like New York, Michigan, Arizona, and California, states where, quote, a court or commission drew a congressional map as opposed to a partisan one, and, quote, Quote, that's why you were going to see a lot of money spent. And quote, Werserman told Axios. Werserman referred to the states with tight races and no competitive statewide elections, as in Georgia, to drive turnout as orphan states that will be especially vulnerable come November. Here's a tweet from Breitbart. It says, ha! They knew they were going to get crushed in midterm elections, so they skipping on their dues. LOL. Quote, the only path to survival for those demonic rats may be to go to scorched earth against still undefined Republican challengers. One of them is me. I am running for president in 2024 on the Build the Moat platform. When I am elected president in 2024, I will declare a cartel invasion and I will send the military to LA to clear out all of those Mexicans and send them back to Mexico, because 1/3 of LA is here illegally from Mexico and does not speak any English. I will then send the military to the southern border. Sorry, I will do that at the same time. And we will deport all the illegal immigrants. And we're going to build the moat on the southern border, which is an amusement park / zoo. We're going to have a moat, filling it up with sharks, crocodiles, eels, piranhas, you name it. And on the U.S. side, we are going to have lions, tigers, bears, packs of wild dogs. We're going to have hippos, okay? And then we're going to have roller coasters. Sorry, I'm having trouble finding my mouse. My air mouse disappeared. This air mouse is kind of buggy, to be 100. And we're going to build roller coasters that are named after the animals. We're going to have the crocodile, the hippo, the wolf, the dog, and it's going to be like a zoo and an amusement park. And then I am going to purge the FBI, the DOJ, and the CIA, the CDC of all deep state Democrats. And I'm going to force the state to use clear and convincing evidence to deprive you of any constitutional rights. Currently, they're using a preponderance of the evidence, and this is allowing the far left universities to... Sorry, I'm having trouble with my mouse. It disappeared. Sorry. Boy. Really testing me here. No, don't want notification. Always block. What was I saying? Yeah, so I am going to be the candidate that is farther to the right than Donald Trump. And it's kind of a joke, kind of not, because it would really actually be super cool to have the moat with all those roller coasters named after the animals in the moat and on the U.S. side. I think that we could do a lot of cool stuff with the moat. And it is a cartel invasion. They're a heavily armed military force. They would assassinate me if they knew that this was going to happen, and that makes them a danger to our country. If we did actually send the military to LA, there could be an armed conflict, and that's why you should send the military to LA, because we cannot allow a heavily armed narco cartel to operate inside of our borders. And I know Joe Biden just wants his son Hunter to be able to smoke as much crack cocaine and bang as many hookers as he can, because Chimo Joe would just rather take showers with Ashley. But, you know, there's like 330 million people that live here, you know, like the days of like this being a country where it's like a free-for-all, you can go colonize, like those are long over. Like now it's overpopulated. There's not enough homes. There's not enough food. There's not enough government assistance The illegal immigrants didn't pay into the welfare system and the hospitals, and now we have Obamacare, so now we have to pay for the medical bills. We got to give them food stamps and welfare because they can't work, so that the Democrats can get the Latinos kids to vote blue no matter who, because typically the second and generation and on, they're more entrepreneurial, so then they'll be voting for Republicans. So the only voter base that they can actually get are white feminists, black people in a hood, and Antifa, and the first generation Latinos. Other than that, everybody else is voting for Republicans because everything that these demonic rats do just about sucks. So that's why they get in the boot. Say, 23 House Democrats have announced that they won't seek re-election to just 11 Republicans. This is the best time if you're a Democrat to dip out. We will take your congressional seat. We will take your spot as mayor. We will take your spot on city council. And we will do a lot better job than you did, because the job that you did sucked. It was pathetic. Joe Biden's approval has been hovering in the low 40s for several months, with inflation driving down his popularity. Polling shows Republicans are winning the generic congressional ballot by on average 1.9 points. They still have room to grow, and they will. This awakening is an exponential growth curve process. It's been going pretty slow, but you know what? If you click like and subscribe, drop a comment down below and share it with your friends on social media, we're going to get this message out to millions of people. And then people all of a sudden start to wake up in an exponential pattern. Next thing you know, we're going to have all kinds of funny movies making fun of these people, and it's going to be great. We're going to have, after I'm elected president in 2024, we're going to have the moat on the southern border. We will have sent the military to LA to kick out all the filthy, stinking Mexicans, and we'll secure the border. We'll take out the cartel. We're going to take out the CCP out of the South China Sea and take over, baby. Because you know we do it right. You know, compared to those CCC thugs, dude, I'm awesome, dude. Our team rocks. And then you got a CCP, and they suck. Cook's U.S. White House editor Dave Wersherman said he should make a sauce after his last name. There should be a Wersherman sauce, right? He said the most competitive races will be in states like New York, Michigan, Arizona, and California. States where a court or commission drew... Oh, I already said that. Quote, that's where you're going to see a lot of money spent. And quote, Wersherman told Axios, yeah, they're going to spend billions of dollars because elections are not won based on ideas in the United States. Elections are won based off of how many millionaires you can get to pay 503c4 nonprofit companies to hire ballot mules to pick up and do ballot harvesting fraud. That's how elections are won in the United States. You cannot compete unless you're throwing down at least $419.5 million like what Mark Zuckerberg did. But then you also got to back the Soros money. That's another 50 mil, bro. That's like $500 million you're going to need to be dropping in to pay as many ballot harvesters as they can. They got way more mules, bro. You ain't going to stand a chance. Elections in the United States are determined by billionaires, not by people, not by your vote. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because they will just pay more ballot harvesters in a big city to get people to come vote. And you won't even notice it because they do it at the last minute. They'll just come in at the last minute, or they'll pay a bunch of nonprofits to pay people to go around and get votes. And as I've been trying to tell people, I said all the way up until that election, that's what's going to happen. I said it was going to happen. And I rang the bell. Emergency, emergency. The worst is happening. What happened? I got censored. What happened? My friends on Facebook burned me. Couldn't get the message out because people weren't hitting that like and subscribe button. They weren't ringing the bell. They weren't sharing on social media. Instead, they were calling me a white supreme pizza, extremist, up in them conspiracy theories. He doesn't like womanism. Sadly, I was not just being a crazy crack conspiracy lunatic. I was right, and the reason why I'm right is because I am a software and computer engineer. I've been reading news pretty heavily for decades. I know math. I know politics. I worked for student government. I used to work for the Democrats. I worked for almost every president in modern times since I was 18 for canvassing. Never knew them, but I worked to help them get elected here in Eugene, Oregon, which is kind of like a blue state, so it's kind of like a meh. But, I did work. I worked for Obama. But, what the thing is like, they're disguising this as if it's just like some 503c nonprofit who's just trying to get people out to vote, but really they're trying to get specific candidates elected. They're trying to get specific laws passed, and they're a 503c4 or a C3 nonprofit, and they're not allowed to do that. That's illegal. But the Democrats, they won't do anything about it. But you know who they're going to prosecute? The McCloskeys. You know who they're going to prosecute? January 6th defendants. They're going to prosecute they're going to prosecute Kyle Rittenhouse. What they're not going to do is they're not going to prosecute their own people, because it just goes one way with them, because to them, they're perfectly justified doing what they do because white people are racist. They enslaved Africa. They took the land from the American Indians. They took the land from the Mexicans. They were Nazis. They killed the Jews. So that means they white supreme pizza, extremist, even the ones that fought the Nazis, even those people. Because the worst possible thing in the entire world is going to be a white dude who doesn't like people who aren't white, right? Right, like the worst goddamn thing in the world is somebody who doesn't like you, right? So that just justifies them bullying people, being having Trump derangement syndrome, doing all this illegal stuff because they think they're right. That's the problem with these people, and why they're so dangerous is because they think that they're right, and they're just dead wrong. They're dumb. Everything is brainwashed with these people. I used to be a Democrat. I used to work for the Democrats. I know all about all of their campaign lines because I used to say them to people. They used to pay me to say them to people. I used to register people to vote. I used to work for campaigns for Osberg. I know all about their rhetoric and their brainwashing. It's a bunch of nonsense bullshit. It's a bunch of young people who are ignorant. They don't know what is going on, and they go for these campaigns because they sound good, and really it's just this machine engine. It's like they have a job, they can get money, they know that they can put in so much money to pay canvassers, to get signatures, and then they could get money back out, and so they know they could, it's like a job for losers who can't get other jobs. So they run these scam organizations like the public interest research groups. Totally should be banned. Absolutely. Our college monies are going to funding these pergs, and they're whack. They're like the Southern Poverty Law Center, the most bullshit people that you can have. Absolutely bullshit. They're like a bunch of skeezy street kids who are going around because it's the only job they can get. They can't get anything else. And they got some scam thing going on. Reading on the articles, Democrats' original plan in New York could have been knocked out could have knocked out half of the 8 GOP-held seats and boosted the party's 19-member delegation to 22. Instead, Rep. Sean Patrick Maloney, Democrat from New York, chair of the House Demonic Rats campaign arm, will run in a district that includes his home, but mostly represented by black freshman Representative Modair Jones, Democrat from New York. Maloney's decision has angered many of the caucus. In a twist, Jones will avoid that primary by running in a different redrawn district, facing off against former New York Mayor Bill de Blasio, among others. This is the problem where I got with this sleazy political class. They move to other states so that they can get Congress seat, like Liz Cheney, that bitch, that lying sack of shit, the one whose father's a war criminal, brought us in an illegal war to Iraq and Afghanistan, murdered a bunch of people, guy that like shot the dude with his friend with a shotgun in the face, right? That dude, right? Like that bitch that if I'm elected president in 24, I'm gonna lock that bitch up. Yo, I'm purging the Democrats out of the DOJ, out of the CIA, the FBI, the CDC, you name it. If it's a federal government, deep state Democrats gonna get purged, baby. They gone. You getting a pink slip, baby. And then we're gonna lock them up. We're gonna lock that bitch up. We're gonna lock Hillary Clinton up. We're gonna build the moat on the southern border. And we're going to have a prison there, and we're going to lock Hillary up in it. So hit like and subscribe down below. Drop a comment to feed the algorithm. Ring the bell. Share it on social media. And don't forget to check me out on other platforms, Facebook, Rumble, Parler, Getter. I'm not really on Twitter. I'm suspended, banned. But until then, that is it for tonight's show. And as I say every time, farewell, sayonara, aloha, Godspeed, and peace be with you.